long time back, something odd happened to me that I actually couldn't figure out its significance. Why it was only a normal Friday subsequent to escaping a long shutting shift at work, I made a speedy microwave dinner, then I jumped online with a portion of my pulse and began gaming. I had a Red Bull and a few bites max and was prepared to keep awake until late and partake in the night. We gamed for some time. I never at any point really looked at the time, yet sooner or later there was a dump. At first I just told my companions to hang on as I took headset off and I stood up. However, when I pivoted from my work area, I understood how dim it was inside and outside, seeing just the light from my PC. I remained there, seeing at this point how all the way strange it was for somebody need to be at my interway this some time later, and that is the point at which I saw a man taking a gander at my through the window. I froze when I saw him, feeling my stomach exit the spookings of him gazing at me. Then the man hollered through the glass, posing me at inquiry, yet I was excessively out of it to figure out him what I said. Strolling nearer to the window, the man rehashed the same thing, inquiring me in the event that I was somebody he knew made Jack, or on the other hand, Jack or something. I didn't get the name, yet it certainly wasn't me. I shook my head no, and the man didn't express anything as he left the window and vanished past my front yard. Being a piece shaken, I right way closed the blinds, then at that point returned to the PC and educated my companions concerning what simply happened. They all didn't even trust me from the get-go, yet I think heard the understanding in my voice as they began posing a tone of inquiries, which just made me significantly more creeped out. I accepted their recommendation, going around and it were locked to ensure every one of the interways. They likewise locking the window, which I'd never at any point tried to do before then. At that point, they guaranteed me all the well, and we returned to what we were. 2 or 3 hours passed, and truly I totally overlooked what had happened. I assume I expected to be that in the event that they were to accomplish something, it would have been just for he'd appeared. However, at that point, a noisy thump from my behind me practically shook me off my seat. This time, it was certainly from the front interway. I told my companions, murmuring into the headset. They said to see what its identity was also. Simply call the cops. Doing as they said, I discreetly strolled over to interway and watched out onto the patio. It was him again, remaining there hanging tight for me to answer. I looked briefly and strangely. He held focusing to his right side as he though were taking a gander at something or somebody. I stepped back and got my telephone, calling the police and murmuring to them what was going on. One more thump came as I advanced back to the entryway and peered out, seeing the man looking out of the way. Once more, then he made a little motion with his hand prior to thumping once again. Yet the night hushed up enough for me to hear another person's strides moving around to the side of the house. I followed the sound with my eyes until it halted right under one of the windows. I saw the glass shift up somewhat prior to stealing out to the lock and falling back down. The attempt once more, yet the window didn't get gave, and after this there was likely an entirely minute that went by where I didn't hear anything. I just remained there and tuned in the administrator, refreshing me on the appearance of the official as I gazed at the window, and a piteous dull sound came from outside the window as being something wedged into the wood. I could see the whole casing around the glass moving as I stepped back and attempted to consider what to do. However, unexpectedly, a bunch of strides ran from the front of the way to side window, followed by one of them running away 1 minute after. The fact I saw the blazing red and blue lights coming through the windows. The police entered the area and captured one of them and removed them. He had expressed in the cross-examination that he was my close buddy and needed to converse with me. I didn't concede reality and everything stayed obscure. Precisely following 2 years, I haven't seen him once more. However, assuming something reoccurs, I will tell you. At the point when my better half and I moved into our new house in New York, I coincidentally tracked down an old photograph collection in my stuff and began flipping through the pages and reminiscing. In the many layers of photographs, I saw a photograph with my dad that disliked the other photographs, and it helped me to remember a severe memory in the past. We resided in a town and my dad had a huge ranch. Yet I loved city life and found country life exhausting. My dad had three unique weapons to safeguard us. There was one time he needed to pursue two men of the property with his rifle. Everything that I am going to say to you happened scarcely any years back. I think it was in June. I was home alone as my folks were on the excursion together and my younger sibling was out with companions or at his sweetheart's home for the night. I don't recall. It was a hot evening, so I had every one of the windows open. I used to fall asleep beautiful late around that time, so I think it was around 1 in the morning. I was still in the living room sitting in front of the television when I saw the movement detecting porch lights turn on outside. This light would just turn on due to truly observable development by an individual. So quickly, I accepted it was my younger sibling getting back to the protected. I got up and watched out the window. However, I didn't see anybody. I took out my wireless and called my sibling Jenny and Speedy. He didn't get, so I went to put on. Then it began. The thumping at the front of the entryway. Our entryway had a peephole on the grounds that clearly anybody coming to our home made a special effort to arrive. So we'd have to realize who was there previously. Opening the entryway at the point when I went to go look through the peephole, I didn't see anybody. So I'm promptly thinking ding dong ditch. Potentially some neighborhood punky kids, conceivably my sibling. I was trusting the second was the case. I shut the blinds now since I became jumpy that I was being observed. I shot my sibling a text saying, if I figure out it's you, I'm not giving you access. Minutes after the fact, there was a thump right behind my head. So, aparious, I really leaped off the lounge chair. It was a thump at the lounge room window, followed by the what I can best portray to be two voices. One a profound male voice, one a higher pitched female voice saying, we see you at the same time. Heart dashing, I envisioned it to be the most unrealistic thing I could imagine, that it was my younger sibling and his sweetheart playing with me. At the time, it checked out, or perhaps I simply believed that it should appear to be legit. The beating at the window didn't stop. There it continued onward. It moved to another window. This time, the window in the lounge area where I didn't close the blinds. From the point I was remaining at, I could see two fingers at the window. However, no possibly might it at any point see anything about their countenances. I didn't view at them as I ran higher up to my father's space to get one of his firearms from under his bed. He told me precisely where he kept it just if there should be an occurrence of a crisis. I stacked the rifle and ran down the stairs to lounge area window. However, there weren't remaining there any longer with a stacked weapon. I felt much more certain about opening that front entryway and going outside to defy what is happening. At the point when I ventured external concluded I'd do one full speedy lap around the house and keep an eye on the dairy kettle. I was no marksman except for had the defensive impulse for the property. Also, I was prepared to utilize the weapon on the off chance that I expected to. The entire property appeared to be clear and the stairs were fine. So I returned inside, actually look at each entryway, also hit the hay higher up. For 30 minutes harmony and calm until I heard an upsetting sound come from first floor and outside. Somebody was madly beating at the front entryway ground floor, went with a man yelling as loud as possible, not yelling words or anything, simply shouting. I snatched the rifle close to my bed, ran to the lounge window, pushed it open. Furthermore, terminated about outside into the dim night. The shouting and beating halted, and I heard two arrangements of strides rapidly step off the wooden patio, and afterward there was only the sound of the night crickets. The remainder of the night I heard voices every once in a while, and I was unable to rest by any means. Yet, when the sky began to illuminate, nothing occurred. Who can say for sure what might have occurred in the event that my dad didn't have the weapons? After he found out, he got me a weapon as a prize and demanded that I could utilize it when fundamental. Do so, I've had many terrible encounters with peculiar individuals in my house, from when I was youthful and elderly person would come beating on our entryway late at night. Late evening requesting to see my making me need to conceal in the house, or once when a man came thumping our entryway late around evening time with a blade since he mistook our home for my neighbor's. These encounters generally caused me to be extremely careful about opening the front way to anybody or in any event, being in the house alone, particularly around evening time. Yet one night was most certainly the most horrendously awful. It was around 6 p.m. in November 2018. I'm from Britain, meaning it was currently completely dark outside right now of the year. I had quite recently returned home from work, and I was sitting in my room higher up watching YouTube on my PC. My mother yelled dependent upon me that she was about to get my sibling from work and would visit the service station returning, so she would be away for a smidgen, and inquired in the event that indeed I calm said no, and I continued with my widow. I heard her nearby. The front entryway was more. Haul out of the carport. I was 17 at the time, so being home alone around evening time was the same old thing to me, and I was utilized to shocking the sensation of it. However, after around 10 minutes, I began hearing emotions coming from first floor. At first, I barely cared about it, and I just related it to my falling boisterously looking for food in vacation bowl until I recalled that him sitting at the end my bed. I stopped my widow and listened more at the beating on my indirect axis. This in a flash crept me out till it was trailed by the sound of keys hanging, and I just figured goodness, my mother probably dropped my sibling off prior to going to the station. Also, is simply attempting to head outside. So I allowed the climber to go on as I kept watching my widow. He can blow up on occasion, so the noisy banging was nothing out of the standard, yet it recently continued to continue banging in the hints of keys, hanging then at that point, dropping then banging again, that the trepidation truly hit me. I try not to believe it's himself. I left my him room gradually and sat on the steps listening cautiously to the commotion. It certainly wasn't him. I'm a very restless individual, and everybody gets those time late around evening time when they hear emotions and promptly think just awful. This was only one of those, I told myself. So I choose to do what needs to be done and just walk straight into the kitchen and face anything it was that was causing the commotion. Our kitchen has the entryway confronting directly to the garden, yet as I transformed the corner into the kitchen, I heard an imperious bang and bang of strides take off of the fill-in fold had been ripped off the interways and there was plastic from it. Whenever, indeed, I actually attempt to console myself into figuring it could have been something besides individual breaking in, I sat back on the steps and called my mother, just to check again that it wasn't my sibling home early and simply in a terrible state of mind. However, at that point, he addressed my mother's telephone while still in the vehicle. "Are you home?" I shouted at him, then my voice began to break with fear. "Kindly be serious. Are you home at this time?" I asked. "Not what do you need?" Despite said to the fact that said he wasn't, I still asked to me that he was kidding just to alarm the out of me yet. He heard how frightened I was and started to stress. I clarified for him what occurred and he began to shout at me to call the police. He's never been the defensive type yet, I could see now. He was truly stressed and advised my mother to rush back home straight away while requiring the police. I made a respectable attempt to remain even tempered. I told them precisely the thing was going on as I concealed back in my room with the interway firmly locked. At that point, I heard talking and the banging of interway's ground floor once more. They were back. I started to sob comfortably to the dispatcher out of the unadulterated trepidation, and I sat on the telephone for what felt like perpetually until my mother, sibling, and police all pulled up simultaneously. Everybody charged through the house to the back interway, and we immediately saw what they had done. Individuals saw the keys to the back entry as an afterthought in the kitchen, took a brush from outside, broke it in half on the interway handle, helped the brush through the defined fold, thumped the keys off the side, and got them through the fill-in fold elevage. Out of blind karma, as they broke the brush in half, they too figured out how to snap off the interway handle, making it totally unthinkable for it to be opened from the outside. In any case, they would have gotten in no inquiries asked, and I would have been sitting unobtrusively in my room, totally neglecting. It was clear subsequently that they had been watching the house for a while, holding on until the specific second that they saw my mother's vehicle pull out of the drive. I don't know whether they realized I was there alone or not, yet I know that later they at first saw me and took off the gun with a decision to come back.